Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom to you too. Chaim Baruch Halevsky here, Chabad Family Programs, with our running commentary, number 96. Where we exercise our mind, our heart, and our soul and our bodies all at the same time. So, this week, Bamidbar, Parashat Bamidbar, and it's called the Book of Numbers in some societies. Yeah, in the Jewish tradition too. The Book of Numbers, Sefer HaPekudim. It starts off with God counting the Jewish people. Makes a census. He asks Moses to count the Jewish people. Why does he count us? What's the point of counting? God knows. He knows who we are. He knows how many we are. What's the idea of counting? So, Rashi, the biblical commentator, says, God counts us because he loves us. When you love something, you count it. Sometimes a person might have precious stones, money, toys, dolls, whatever floats your fancy. Everybody counts the things that are precious to them. And the Jewish people are precious to God, therefore he counted them. So, in this counting, interestingly, there were two categories that were very different. One was all the tribes aside from the tribe of Levi, the Levites. Echo. And the other one was the Levite tribe. The Levite tribe, Levi, included all the Kohanim, the priests, and the Levites, the people who served in the Mishkan, in the temple, in the tabernacle, and later on in the Holy Temple. So two different kinds of countings. One was for everyone else, and the other one was for the Levites. The question is why? And also in the details. The manner in which they counted them. The Torah says that all the people who were counted, we're talking about, actually they were counted to be counted in the army, to be joining the army. The Jewish army, whose job was it? It was to protect the Jewish people and to take care of them. So this was an army counting. In Hebrew, the word army is tzava. Kol yotzei tzava b'Yisrael. Now, all the army counts were from people. This is a count of the men. There was a counting of the families of everything, but in one specific count, it was the men between 20 and 40, and they were counted at 20 years old. These men, for the army. There was a counting of all the families. I just want to put that down there. Counted every man, woman, and child according to the families. Family, family, family. And that's a whole other story. Beautiful talk that the Rebbe spoke about. But now I'm talking about the army count. So there were two army counts. One army count was for the general Jewish army. Another army count was for the spiritual army. And hence the two countings. The regular army count, all the Jewish people, aside from the tribe of Levi, were counted at 20 years old. Once they turned 20, they were counted among those who are counted. We're using the word counting a lot today, because that's what it's all about. Being counted. You count. Everyone counts. So, 20 years old, you became counted for the army. Everyone but the Levites, the Shevet Levi, the tribe of Levi. The tribe of Levi had their own count, and they were counted from 1 month old. 1 month, 30 days old. And that is the question the Rebbe poses about this week's Parsha's counting. Why was it that the regular army, to protect the world and to protect the Jewish people from the world, you had to be 20 years old, while the spiritual army, they counted them at 1 month old? Now, the Rebbe says that the spiritual work was not so simple. It wasn't easy. It also entailed physical labor, but it was complicated. They had to know the laws of the temple, of the sacrifices, and everything else. Why count babies at 1 month old? That's the question. And the answer, says the Rebbe, beautiful thing. And it also connects to Shavuot. The Rebbe says, because the Torah portion of Bamidbar, this week's Torah portion, which starts the 4th book of the Torah, always comes out the week before Shavuot. It's always that in the week of Shavuot or the week before Shavuot. And in a few days of Shavuot, so the Rebbe always often connects the story of the Torah portion and Shavuot. Here too. The Rebbe says that for the regular army person to be prepared for war, he needs to be well developed. He needs to be trained. A person can't start participating in a war without being strong, being healthy, being trained. So, in a kind of taking this army thing in a bit of a spiritual sense, for us to transition this whole army idea to our lives here today, when we're not in a war, but we are soldiers in God's army. For us to go take on the world and protect the Jewish people from the outside influences, we need some training. We need some development. And that's why a person has to be 20 years old in order to join the Jewish army. But the Levim, the Levites, they were 1 month old. And they are a different kind of army. So technically, they were the army of people who served in the temple. That was the technical position that they had. But practically and relevant to us, they were guarding the holiness in the Jewish people. That's what they were doing, the Levim. They were an army, also an army, but it was an army that was guarding the holiness within the Jewish people. This army of a spirit. And for that, says the Rebbe, you just need to be born and you're already in that army. You don't need training. You don't need development. Even a baby is already an appropriate soldier. And what does that mean for us? And the Rebbe quotes the Rambam and says, the Rambam, Maimonides says, when he talks about the laws of the Kohanim, the priests and the Levim, and how they serve in the temple, the Rambam says, part of the Jewish law, he says it's not only them whom God chose to serve, but any other person, anybody from the extended tribes of Israel who chooses, and the words he uses, nadva berucho, that his spirit is generous enough and he wants to commit his spirit to serving God, he's considered a servant of God and a Kohen and a Levi and a priest, he or she, and they join God's army. So the Rebbe says that this is really telling us that each of us, every single Jew, is part of the Levite tribe in that sense. Even if we come from a different tribe ancestrally, if our lineage is from another tribe, but spiritually, we also come from the tribe of Levi, or we're connected with the tribe of Levi, if we dedicate ourselves to serving God. so the Rebbe says that in our broader service in life, we need to be older and better developed and trained in order to serve God, to tackle the world, to tackle the challenges of the world. You need some training. But to be a servant of God and to guard the holiness within, everyone can do that, even children at home, without any training, just from what the parents would give them. And this leads, says the Rebbe, to Bamidbar, to Shavuot. And Shavuot, the Midrash tells us that God offered the Torah to all the nations of the world. I'm sorry, different Midrash. God asked the Jewish people, who will be your guarantors for this special Torah, this treasure of mine? Who will guarantee that you'll keep it and it will go on forever? And the Midrash talks about how the Jewish people offered the forefathers, Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, the righteous people, the tzaddikim, leaders, the prophets, and God didn't accept them as the guarantors until they said the children, the little ones, the little children will be our guarantors, and that was accepted. Meaning God saying, I trust the children to be able to hold the torch and pass it on to the next generation. I don't necessarily trust the adults so much, because the children have this fire within. They have a natural faith and a natural flame. We just have to be careful not to extinguish it. That's our job as adults and parents. So this connects us to this week's Torah portion in which the Levim were counted as children. The Levites were counted as children, even as a baby from 1 month old. And the Rebbe says, even the month, so you can ask why not count them from when they're born. Why wait a month? The Rebbe says that's a technical issue, because really they are counted from when they're born. But there's this concept in the Jewish tradition, in the Jewish law, to wait 1 month to see if the child will be stable and will live. And therefore we wait for that month. And once a child is out of the danger zone of childbirth, of being such a tiny infant, that's when the counting falls. It begins. So that's the story. We are all in the Army of Hashem. We're all in the Army of God, part of the tribe of Levi, and especially our children. And that's our focus now, is to make sure that our children are enlisted in the army. And there's actually something called ShavuotAn Hashem that the Rebbe started, which is called the Army of Hashem. And it's a beautiful, incredible experience for children who are involved in it. And I hope to remember to put it in here, but you can check it up, ShavuotAn Hashem. If you have any children until bar bat mitzvah, they have all kinds of medals and prizes and incentives and goals, and they teach them a lot, and kids love it. Have your kids join ShavuotAn Hashem. That's it for today. Shabbat Shalom and happy Shavuot. I will, right now, this is 96. I'm aiming to have God willing, have my 100th talk, 100th running commentary during my Friendship Circle Marathon, which you are invited to join or participate in. That will be on June 7th. So, see you there. And a few times before. God bless you. Shabbat Shalom. We miss you all. Thanks for coming.